Welcome to another 2D Sunday-ish, and today we're going to be talking about Two Crude Dudes, or Two Crude, or Crude Busters, depending on what region you're from and what it's called. I believe in Asia it was called Crude Busters. This game was developed by and published by Data East in 1990. It's a scrolling beat 'em up. It was ported, I should say, not ported, ported to the Mega Drive in 1992. Also, obviously, the Sega Genesis, depending on where you are. Outside of Japan, it was called Two Crude Dudes. That's the name I knew it by. And also Crude Busters. Basically, it's about mercenaries. Two mercenaries were hired by the US government to stop a terrorist organization called Big Valley after they destroyed New York City with a nuclear weapon. So on the left, you can see the track screen for the arcade, and on the right is the Mega Drive. The music you're hearing is the arcade version. So yeah, this is, I'm going to be talking about my history with Two Crude Dudes and what I thought about it and the impact it had on me. And I'm also going to be showing the Mega Drive version and the arcade version here. The Mega Drive version will be two-player, all two-player shots, basically video, and all single player will be the arcade. Yeah, so let's enjoy this and see where we go with Two Crude Dudes and the footage shown. Once again, two-player footage Mega Drive, one-player footage arcade. All right, let's get to it. So, Two Crude Dudes is the sequel to Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja, or Bad Dudes, depending on how you know it and where you are from. That was the first game produced and developed by Data East, and it got released in 1988 in the arcades. Got ported to many home computers, micro 8-bit computers and 16-bit computers, and even got a NES port as well. So, yeah, Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja is the original part 1. My history with this game started from obviously the arcade. I saw it in the arcade many years ago upon release. I believe I saw it in a fun fair and in a couple of corner shops. I just saw this big, brash and loud game, and it was bright and vibrant. I just loved it. It was just, I mean, was it the best game in the world? No, but it's just a cult classic. And here's the Mega Drive version here, as you can see. Not as big and bright as the arcade, but still very good. And I'm glad that they kept the two-player co-op in there as well. That's always a nice feature, because in those days, you wasn't necessarily guaranteed that the two-player option would make it into the home console port. But the Mega Drive, it did really well in that respect. A lot of its arcade ports that it received kept two-player mode, which was really nice. So yeah, nice big chunky graphics, decent sound. The arcade had a lot of good speech in there. Unfortunately, the Mega Drive didn't keep most of it. The gameplay, punches, kicks, you could do a roll. I don't believe the roll had invincibility frames, but you had a roll. You picked up a lot of stuff and threw it at enemies. A lot of stuff in this dystopian Mad Max type of future in New York. Yeah, it's very 80s, very 80s. The music from the arcade, to be honest, when it came to the Mega Drive, it was a match made in heaven. The music was pretty faithful, a bit more twangy because of the Mega Drive chipset, but very good, and I loved it. Like I said, the home version, I was so glad it had two-player in there, because myself and my brother, we could play together, so it wasn't one person waiting or trying to fight each other to get the other person off the Mega Drive. What I will say though is that I didn't realize that the Mega Drive just wasn't as bright and as colourful as some of the levels on the arcade. I mean, the sprites were nice. Obviously, some of the animation disappeared, as it would. But yeah, it was just surprising. Because obviously at that age, you're thinking, the port's perfect. It's a perfect port. It's only kind of looking back at it now when I realised that, actually, maybe it wasn't. But still, at that age and at that time, you still wasn't getting ports like this, so it was really good. Be interesting to see what the Amiga port was like if it came to the Amiga. Going back through the game, one of the differences I noticed is that the arcade had a few more mini bosses thrown in there, whereas the Mega Drive didn't keep all of them. Probably once again because of the size of the cartridge. The Mega Drive, I'm assuming, was a 4 meg card, or probably at that time the biggest it could have been was an 8 meg card. So yeah, some of these bits were missing from the Mega Drive version here. Well, this is the arcade, but some of these things I didn't notice in the Mega Drive version while we were playing it. But still, it was still a good port, but it's just that the arcade had more mini bosses, I would say, than the Mega Drive version. Some of the stages came in different orders as well. At this point in time, this game and I believe WrestleFest was probably the first 2 games that really made me appreciate big screens for these huge, colourful, chunky graphics. Yeah, it was definitely this and WrestleFest, because I played both of those games in a small corner shop with your standard tiny, arcade cabinet that was there. Nothing special, mono sound. But when I went to the fun fair, these were on the big screens. I say big, they were probably like 40 inches. But at the time, 40 inches for a cheap TV was huge. Excuse me, sorry. And yeah, the graphics and the sound that was coming out of these arcade machines, they just pulled you towards them. I mean, obviously WrestleFest was a button masher, and this was, it was jacked up to the highest level on the arcade, so it was hard as nails. And I believe in the local corner shop, this was 20p per credit. And in the fun fair, this was 50 pence per credit. So yeah, it was, you paid for the screen basically, and they were just ramped up to the hardest level, but they looked so good on those big screens. To be honest, sometimes the smaller corner shops, that those arcade machines gave the game a bit of a disservice. It didn't really pop as good. So yeah, this was one of the 2 games that really made me appreciate massive screens. Obviously at home, I had like a tiny little, I don't know what, 10-inch or 12-inch portable, whatever the general size of portable TVs were at the time. So, and I was never allowed to plug this into the main TV in the front room. God forbid. My mum wasn't having that. Nah, she wasn't having that at all, mate. But yeah, big screens made these type of games with these type of graphics look really, really good. As I like to do in most of my videos, I like to show boss fights near the end of the video. So I'm just going to run through random boss fights using the Mega Drive version. I think one of them with the arcade, and let's talk about the playability. The Mega Drive, I personally feel, doesn't play as well as the arcade. It's a little bit cheaper to get rushed. The 2-player obviously is nice, but it's just weird. Normally the Mega Drive port plays better than the arcade, but in this scenario the Data East arcade version is better than the Mega Drive port of the same game. The hit detection is just a little bit better on the arcade, whereas on the Mega Drive, perhaps because it's missing some animation, maybe that's the reason why, but I don't know. It just seems to be a problem with the hit detection. On both versions, the bosses are cheap as hell. Typical fare for that time, for these type of games, especially from Data East. They were never the greatest with hit detection, but it was strange how it didn't improve for the Mega Drive port. Move wise, it's got all the same moves in both versions. Your punch, kicks, roll. I believe the punches and kicks just come out randomly as you hit the attack button. I don't believe kicks come out if you're closer, or if punches come out because you're more further away. But there you go. Anyway, if you want to subscribe, subscribe. If you want to, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, here I just wanted to show off the first battle, so the first boss battle. Just show you realistically the difference between the 2 side by side. Obviously, the one on the left is arcade, and footage on the right is the Mega Drive, which is 2-player. So yeah, it's just to show you the difference between them. I mean, sprite size isn't bad and stuff like that, but it's just, you know, that they were very similar. And port-wise, you can make that decision for yourself. As an early port, it wasn't bad, to be honest. Probably a small cartridge, but really cool to see them side by side for this boss battle. All right, that's going to be me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!